The entire conference room fell silent the moment the door opened. No one expected the new vice president of business intelligence to be the man who stepped inside. Ethan Miller walked in with calm confidence, his presence enough to freeze every whispered conversation. But the most stunned person in the room wasn't the staff or the executives watching him take his seat. It was Samantha Reed, the woman who had spent years belittling him, dismissing his ambitions, and telling everyone he would never amount to anything. Her face went pale as Ethan placed his folder on the table, as if the universe itself had decided to deliver a dramatic twist right in front of her. No one knew the truth behind his sudden rise, the countless nights he worked in secret, or the quiet determination that had carried him here. Ethan Miller had always been the kind of person who carried quiet dreams, the kind that didn't demand attention but never stopped burning inside him. For years, he wanted to pursue a master's degree, not for prestige, but because he knew he was capable of more. But every time he tried to talk about it, Samantha would roll her eyes, laugh, or brush him off as if he were a child asking for a toy he couldn't afford. She loved calling it his little crisis project, a phrase she used so often that her friends began repeating it at parties. Whenever they were out with colleagues, she would introduce him with a teasing smile, telling everyone he was still figuring life out, as if he were stuck in some permanent stage of immaturity. Ethan pretended not to care, but every word hit deeper than he ever let her know. Ethan's breakthrough came on a night when he was barely staying awake. His group had been assigned a challenging consulting case, and while everyone else pitched surface-level ideas, Ethan dove deep into the data, uncovering patterns no one else noticed. During the final presentation, he explained his findings with a calm confidence he didn't even realize he had. The classroom fell silent when he finished. And then Professor Marshall Grant, a man known for being brutally selective, nodded slowly and asked Ethan to stay after class. That short conversation shifted the course of Ethan's life. Professor Grant told him he saw real potential, sharp instincts, analytical skill, and an ability to connect the dots in ways most students couldn't. He invited Ethan to assist on a small research project, which quickly turned into larger consulting collaborations. Before long, Ethan found himself in meetings with industry veterans, absorbing knowledge he had never imagined being exposed to. He listened more than he spoke, took meticulous notes, and treated every assignment as a chance to learn something new. The more he worked with Professor Grant, the more doors opened. He was introduced to professionals in data strategy, senior consultants, and even partners at well-known firms. These people didn't see him as the guy figuring out his life. They saw talent. They saw hunger. And most importantly, they saw someone worth investing in. For the first time in years, Ethan felt genuinely respected. Not tolerated, not teased, not belittled, respected. It was a foreign feeling, almost uncomfortable at first, but one he quickly began to embrace. Meanwhile, Samantha's own career wasn't going the way she wanted. She had been preparing for a director role, convinced she was ready for the next step. She bought new clothes, rehearsed interview answers aloud, and told everyone she was a guaranteed pick. But when the results came out, she didn't even make the shortlist. The rejection hit her harder than she wanted to admit. When she told Ethan, she expected sympathy or at least concern. But Ethan simply nodded and asked if she wanted to talk about it. That calmness irritated her. She snapped that he wouldn't understand because his career wasn't moving fast enough to face real pressure. She didn't know that earlier that same day, Ethan had been invited to join a high-level project for a prestigious client. Ethan kept his successes to himself. He had learned that sharing achievements with someone who didn't value him only caused conflict. Instead, he poured his energy into the opportunities unfolding around him. He attended workshops, joined advanced study groups, and spent evenings at networking events where people were genuinely interested in what he had to say. Each new experience strengthened him. He started seeing himself not as the exhausted student juggling too much, but as someone who finally belonged in the world he once felt intimidated by. His confidence grew, his ideas sharpened, and his presence in every meeting became more noticeable. Samantha sensed the shift, but didn't understand it. She thought Ethan was simply distracted or distant. She had no idea he was rising, quietly, steadily, and with a momentum that would soon take him far beyond everything she believed he could ever become. Graduation day arrived like a storm he never saw coming. Ethan had expected to finish quietly, maybe shake a few hands, collect his diploma, and disappear back into the rhythm of work. But the moment his name was announced as the top graduate of the entire program, the auditorium erupted in applause. It took him a second to process it. He walked across the stage, stunned, and accepted not just his diploma but a prestigious award given only to one student each year, the award for outstanding academic and professional excellence. Flashbulbs went off. Classmates high-fived him. Even professors who barely spoke during the semester congratulated him with genuine admiration. The day of the announcement felt strangely calm for Ethan. He arrived early, adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror, and took a deep breath before stepping into the conference room where the entire department had gathered. Everyone was buzzing with speculation about who the new vice president of business intelligence would be. Rumors had circulated for weeks, with most people assuming it would be an external hire or some senior manager flown in from Technova's headquarters. No one even remotely considered Ethan. The room grew quiet when the Technova executives entered. The division president cleared his throat, smiled, and began talking about strategic transformation, fresh leadership, and a rising star who has repeatedly proven exceptional capability. Heads turned, whispering intensified, and employees exchanged guesses under their breath. Then the president said, "Please welcome our new vice president." And Ethan stepped through the doorway. Silence collapsed over the room like a weight. Several people blinked in confusion. A few mouths literally fell open. Managers who barely remembered his name straightened in their seats, suddenly aware they had underestimated the wrong person. But the reaction that cut through everything, the one Ethan felt even before he saw it, came from Samantha. She stood frozen near the back, her phone in hand, her expression draining from confidence to shock to something close to panic. Ethan had never seen her speechless before. For years she had spoken over him, spoken for him, spoken about him. Now she had nothing. After the announcement, applause erupted, though it sounded more stunned than celebratory. Ethan shook hands, thanked the executives, and tried to stay composed even though adrenaline rushed through his veins. He didn't seek out Samantha. He didn't need to. She found him within minutes. She grabbed his arm the moment the crowd thinned. "Why didn't you tell me?" she demanded, her voice trembling. Her eyes darted between his face, and the VP badge clipped to his suit, as if hoping it might disappear. "You kept this from me. You lied. You made me look stupid." Ethan looked at her calmly, the same calm she had once mocked. "I didn't lie," he said. "I worked, I grew, and you never cared to ask." Samantha shook her head, refusing to accept it. "I supported you," she insisted. "I was always there. You can't just—" "You weren't there," he interrupted quietly. "You looked down on me. Every time I tried to do better, you made me feel small." She stared at him as if seeing him for the first time, and maybe she was. The version of Ethan she had built in her mind no longer existed. As he walked away to join a meeting with Technova leadership, Samantha called after him, her voice cracking. "Ethan, don't do this. We can fix it, we can talk." But he didn't look back. He had spent years trying to earn the respect of someone who never intended to give it. Now he was standing in the position she once dreamed of, surrounded by people who finally recognized his worth. The life she thought she controlled was slipping out of her hands, and the man she had underestimated had just become her boss. In the weeks following the announcement, the entire dynamic of the office shifted. People who once overlooked Ethan now greeted him with a mix of respect and caution, unsure how much he remembered about the times they ignored him in meetings or dismissed his suggestions. But Ethan didn't hold grudges. He was too focused on stabilizing the department during the merger and proving that his promotion was based on merit, not luck. Meanwhile, Samantha's world began unraveling at a speed she couldn't control. She tried pretending everything was fine, acting overly cheerful in meetings, and rushing to volunteer for projects she wasn't prepared for. But the pressure exposed cracks she had always managed to hide. She missed deadlines, responded unprofessionally to coworkers, and made careless mistakes that cost the team hours of extra work. Her manager documented each incident carefully. At first, no one told Ethan. They didn't want to put him in a difficult position, considering the history everyone was now whispering about. But eventually, the reports reached the leadership team, and Ethan couldn't ignore them. When he reviewed the documentation, he was stunned by how quickly Samantha's performance had deteriorated. It was as if she had poured all her energy into keeping up an illusion, and the moment the illusion cracked, everything else fell apart with it. Samantha tried defending herself, telling coworkers that she was under unfair scrutiny now that her ex was in power. But no one bought it. People had seen her work long before Ethan's promotion, and the truth was obvious. She wasn't failing because he succeeded. She was failing because she had never built real competence to stand on her own. While she spiraled, Ethan focused on transforming the department. He redesigned outdated data systems, introduced automation tools that cut processing time by more than half, and built new forecasting models that impressed Technova's financial division. Within months, his initiatives saved the company millions of dollars. Executives from headquarters visited to observe his strategies, praising his innovative approach and leadership style. The corporate rumor mill exploded with admiration. People said he was the fastest-rising VP in the entire organization. Some believed he was on track for a C-suite role sooner than anyone expected. For the first time, Ethan felt truly aligned with his work, challenged, trusted, and valued. He walked into meetings with confidence, not fear. People listened when he spoke. His input carried weight. And yet, the better he performed, the worse Samantha's situation became. Her frustration turned into bitterness, and bitterness into reckless behavior. She snapped at teammates, arrived late, and once even lashed out at a junior employee during a meeting. That was the final warning. Human Resources placed her on a performance improvement plan. It was official, documented, and nearly impossible to escape once activated. When Samantha received the notice, she looked devastated, as if the world had betrayed her. But deep down, she knew it wasn't the world, it was her own choices. The irony was painful. The woman who had once mocked Ethan for falling behind was now the one fighting to keep her job. And the man she dismissed as unambitious was now delivering results so undeniable that even the CEO personally praised him in front of an entire leadership panel. For years, Samantha had convinced herself she was the superior one. Now the truth stood in stark contrast. Ethan wasn't just succeeding. He was thriving at a level she had never imagined, leaving her to confront the consequences of everything she once believed about him and about herself. Samantha avoided the office kitchen for days, terrified of running into Ethan or anyone who might mention her performance improvement plan. Her confidence, once inflated and unshakable, had collapsed completely. She arrived early to hide, stayed late to avoid people, and kept her head down in meetings where she used to speak loudly and confidently. The contrast was so dramatic that even those who once envied her now felt uncomfortable watching her unravel. Meanwhile, Ethan was dealing with the aftermath of her decline in a way she never expected. He didn't mock her. He didn't humiliate her. He didn't even distance himself out of spite. Instead, he quietly met with HR and senior leadership to understand her situation and what options existed that wouldn't destroy her career entirely. It wasn't about protecting her. It was about doing the right thing. When he finally asked Samantha to speak in a private conference room, she walked in nervously, afraid this would be the moment he used his new authority to take revenge. But Ethan simply sat across from her, hands folded, expression calm. "You're struggling," he said gently. "I've seen the reports. I know you're overwhelmed." She broke instantly. All the anger she had been carrying evaporated and was replaced by quiet humiliation. She told him she couldn't keep up, that the stress was crushing her, and that she felt like everyone was waiting for her to fail. Her voice trembled as she admitted things she never would have dared say before. For the first time since their breakup, she wasn't defensive or superior. She was human. Ethan listened, without interruption. When she finished, he exhaled and leaned back slightly. "There's an opportunity at a partner consulting firm," he said. "They're expanding their strategic analytics team. You'd fit the role, and they're willing to interview you if you want it." Samantha looked at him, stunned. "You're recommending me," she whispered, as if the idea didn't make sense. After everything she had said. After everything she had done. "I don't want to see you get fired," Ethan replied. "This place isn't good for you anymore. A fresh start might be what you need." Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness, but from the weight of realizing how wrong she had been, not just about Ethan, but about herself. She had spent years convincing herself she was above him, smarter than him, further ahead than him. Yet here he was, offering her a lifeline she didn't deserve. The interview was arranged, and within 2 weeks, she received an offer. She sent Ethan a message asking to meet one last time. When they met at a quiet cafe, she finally said the words she should have said years ago. "I was wrong about you," she admitted. "I thought belittling you would motivate you. I thought I was helping. But all I did was hold you back, and hold myself back even more." Ethan nodded, not out of agreement but acceptance. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "We both grew in different ways, that's all." He stood, shook her hand, and wished her well. There was no bitterness, no lingering resentment, just closure. As Samantha walked away to start a new chapter, Ethan stepped into a future that was growing brighter every day. He had earned the trust of the executive team, built strong relationships across the company, and was now being quietly prepared for an even bigger role, Chief Technology Officer. It was a path he wouldn't have imagined years earlier, back when he was exhausted, doubting himself, and dismissed by the person he loved. Now he understood something deeply. Strength doesn't come from being praised. It comes from rising despite being doubted. And in choosing growth over resentment, he had become the kind of leader others admired, one defined not by the people who once underestimated him, but by the man he chose to become. Ethan stepped onto the stage with a calm confidence that felt completely different from the man he once was. The auditorium was filled with new graduates, their families, and professors who had watched his transformation firsthand. As he adjusted the microphone, he glanced at the audience and saw versions of his younger self, hopeful, uncertain, and hungry for a chance to prove their worth. He began speaking about his journey, not with pride but with honesty. He talked about the years he spent being dismissed, the quiet work done in the shadows, and the determination that kept him moving even when no one believed in him. He reminded them that people who belittle your dreams are often revealing their own fears, not your limitations. Then he ended with a line that brought the entire room to silence. "Trust your effort. Trust your growth. And keep going, even when others can't see your potential. Because one day, the universe may surprise you by turning you into the person they never expected, maybe even the person they answer to." The room erupted in applause as Ethan stepped back, knowing this chapter had closed exactly the way it was meant to.